Hey everyone, and welcome to RUBIN'S Mind Lab, where we break down the latest research into what it really means. Ever wonder why some people seem to breeze through life's challenges while others struggle to stick to their goals? Well, this new study dives into something really interesting, not just if you have self-control, but what you believe about self-control, and how those beliefs might be shaping your entire life. So, we all know self-control is super important, right? It's that ability to resist instant gratification for long-term gains. Think about skipping that extra slice of cake to lose weight or putting down your phone to finish a project. Scientists call this trait self-control and have found it's linked to all sorts of good stuff, like better grades, healthier habits, and happier relationships. But what if it's not just about having self-control, but about what you think self-control is? Do you see it as a draining willpower battle or something more automatic? Do you believe it is something you are born with or something you can learn and improve? This is where the new research comes in. The researchers in this study wanted to explore a wider range of these beliefs about self-control. They started with a list of 14 different ideas people have about self-control, gathered from asking people to describe it in their own words. They suspected that these 14 different beliefs might actually be grouped into a few bigger core ideas about self-control. They hypothesized that they would be able to reproduce these 14 beliefs and then identify these broader core beliefs. They also wanted to see if these core beliefs were different from your actual self-control ability. Kind of like your personality trait for self-control, and also if they were different from your understanding of how self-control works. Most importantly though, they wanted to know if these core beliefs about self-control could actually predict how well you do in different parts of your life, like your health, your job or school, your relationships, your finances, and your overall happiness. They wanted to see if these beliefs added anything to what we already know from measuring your trait self-control and yourself. Control metacognition, which is basically being aware of your own self-control processes. To figure this all out, they gathered a bunch of people, 485 of them, and had them answer a lot of questions. They measured their beliefs about self-control using a detailed questionnaire. They also measured their trait self-control. That's how good they generally are at self-control, using a well-known scale. They also measured their control metacognition, which is how aware they are of their own self-regulation strategies. They also measured social desirability, that's the tendency to answer questions in a way that makes you look good, because sometimes people might overestimate their own self-control. And then the big picture stuff, they asked about their health, their work or school performance, their relationships, their financial behavior, and their overall life satisfaction. They even included an objective measure of health, body mass index, or BMI. By asking for height and weight. After collecting all this data, the real detective work began. First, they looked at that initial list of 14 beliefs to see if they could actually be clustered into bigger ideas. They used a cool technique called network analysis. Think of it like looking at a spider web where each strand represents a connection between different beliefs. This network analysis helped them see how these beliefs naturally group together. They found 3 main clusters of beliefs, and then 2 beliefs that seemed to stand a bit more on their own. After further analysis, including something called exploratory factor analysis, they ended up with 4 core beliefs about self-control. These 4 core beliefs were about whether people think self-control is important, effortless, proactive, or learnable. So for example, the important belief cluster included ideas like self-control being good and mattering. The effortless cluster included beliefs related to comfort versus exhaustion and pain in self-control. The proactive cluster was about having a plan and preparation, and the learnable cluster was about being able to train and learn self-control. Now, a really cool finding was that these 4 core beliefs were only weakly to moderately correlated with actual trait self-control and metacognition. This means that what you believe about self-control is quite different from how good you actually are at it, or how much you understand about your own self-regulation. This directly supports their hypothesis that beliefs are distinct concepts. But the million-dollar question, do these beliefs predict your life outcomes? The answer is a qualified yes. They conducted these statistical tests called hierarchical regressions. Basically, they added predictors one by one to see how much unique extra information each one provided. When they added the 4 core beliefs to the model after controlling for social desirability, the beliefs did explain unique variance in most life outcomes. That is exciting. However, when they then added trait self-control and metacognition, their predictive power became smaller, but some beliefs still showed up as significant predictors. Trait self. Control was generally the strongest predictor across most areas. But the interesting part is that the beliefs offered a unique perspective. And importantly, they were less biased by social desirability than trait self-control. What is really fascinating is how different beliefs had different effects. The belief that self-control is important was linked to better health and lower BMI, but surprisingly, worse finances and lower well-being. On the other hand, believing self-control is effortless was linked to better health, relationships, finances, and well-being. But this effect faded when trait self-control was also considered. Interestingly, the proactive and learnable beliefs didn't really show up as significant predictors in this study, at least not for these general life outcomes. So, what does this all mean for us? Well, the researchers suggest that these beliefs are an overlooked factor in understanding why some people succeed more than others. They highlight that the important and effortless beliefs seem to have the biggest impact. If you believe self-control is important, you might be more motivated to try. Even if you don't have a super high trait self-control, and believing it is effortless might make it feel less daunting. The fact that beliefs had distinct impacts across different life domains is also really important. It shows that how we think about self-control isn't a one-size-fits-all thing. For example, believing self-control is effortless might be more helpful for things like managing finances and well-being than relying purely on the sheer willpower aspect implied by thinking it is always important. Now, like any study, this one has its limits. They mostly relied on people reporting their own experiences and outcomes, which can sometimes be a little biased. Future research could use more objective measures to confirm these findings. Also, this study was done with English-speaking participants from online platforms, so the beliefs might be different in other cultures. And since this is a correlational study, we can't say for sure that beliefs cause these outcomes, though the findings are suggestive. Overall, the takeaway here is super valuable. It is not just about strengthening your self-control muscles, but also about shaping your mindset about what self-control is. If we can help people adopt beliefs that self-control is important, learnable, and perhaps even effortless in certain ways, it could be a powerful tool for improving health, finances, relationships, and overall well-being. It opens up exciting possibilities for interventions that focus on changing how we think about self-control, not just how we do it. What do you think? Do your beliefs about self-control shape how you approach your goals? Let us know in the comments below. If you found this breakdown helpful, please give this video a thumbs up and subscribe to Rubin's Mind Lab for more deep dives into psychology. And don't forget to hit that notification bell so you don't miss our next exploration into the fascinating world of the human mind. Thanks for watching, and we'll see you next time.